You're listening to the Mythcreant Podcast with your hosts, Oren Ashkenazi and Chris Winkle.
There was a castle by a waterfall with a pink and purple wall and a princess living there. She had no parents and was all alone. She got by on her own and she liked it pretty well. 'Cause she never wore socks. She had a pet snake. She bought her a guitar and she ate a whole cake. And there wasn't anybody there to tell her what to do, so she did what she wanted to. Everybody knew the story of the princess who saved herself.
And welcome everyone to another episode of the Mythcreant Podcast. I'm Oren.
And I'm Chris.
Chris, I have a question. Have you ever researched a profession or job that you were going to write about?
I plead the fifth.
Oh, well, trick question. I know you have, because I saw you researching farming. And your character's not even a farmer. They're just from a farm.
Okay, I guess I have. I always feel like my research is not enough, okay? I always feel like I could do more.
I mean, that's technically true in that you always can do more. But I would say that in general, writers at least have an understanding that they should probably learn about a profession if they are trying to portray it and do their best. They don't always succeed. Certainly there is a lot of content out there about, physicists or pilots or doctors or whatever, watching stuff about them and seeing all these mistakes. But you would figure that if there was one profession that writers could get right, it would be writing.
Yeah, you'd think maybe they should research it more.
And yet, they're often very annoying. Now, granted, a lot of this is probably just because I have a different opinion about writing than the people who are giving these portrayals. Nevertheless.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of that and, like, if we see it in a story, somebody's trying to make it fit what they think is a good story.
Yeah.
But to be perfectly honest, like, some of these things that I see that are obnoxious, they're the same things that made me go, oh, when I started, giving writing advice and realizing how many aspects to writing culture make it hard for people to learn writing. And that's why there isn't better writing advice out there. It's all connected, man.
Well, I mean, it is all connected because it's all romanticism.
Okay. Yeah. It's all romanticism. It ruins everything.
Not 100% romanticism, but so many problems about the way that writing is portrayed in fiction is about how, like, you just need to, disconnect from the world, stop looking at anything, just go deeper and deeper into your own mind, just unblock your editor, stream of consciousness, hot alien lady, drain the life force from me to create the perfect book.
We're definitely going to have to talk about that one. But the weird thing about this is, so I was reading a book about agents recently, Laura McGrath's Middleman, and one thing it mentions is how much the book industry purposefully continues spreading romanticism as a way of selling books.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right? Now, is it really necessary to sell books? I don't know, but, like, there's a big focus on genius, and certainly I think it might be easier to sell an author and a books by a particular author if you're like, oh, they're just a genius.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Well, I mean, it's hardly a surprise that if you are marketing a piece of art, the artist is often just as important as the art, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. I think most people would understand that on some level.
And I would not call that exactly a bad thing in the age of AI.
Yeah, there is that. But I also think that at least part of it is that a lot of writers want to be Lord Byron. And, Lord Byron is famous for being a huge weirdo, is the most generous way to describe him. And then dying young. So, we never had to deal with old, uncool Byron. Just like normal, young, exciting, abusive Byron. He did a lot of abuse, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of writers want to be that, and I think that's where that one Deep Space Nine episode where Jake runs into a hot alien lady who drains his life force to write a better book, where that's coming from.
Yeah, okay, we're just gonna have to get into this episode.
Yeah.
And it's it was supposed to be the B plot, but it became the A plot, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, Jake starts writing a book. It's not very good. Hot alien lady shows up. She recognizes his natural genius, of course.
Which he has.
And she's going to teach him to write better. But of course, she does it not by actually teaching him how storytelling works or how writing works at all, but by just starting to feed off his brain juices to keep him from censoring himself. Yeah, because that's all it takes, folks, is you just stop censoring yourself. Just write the most unhinged stuff imaginable on the page, and it's going to be brilliant. That's all it takes.
Right. Also, use a pen, but that famous authors use. She gives him a famous author's pen.
Yeah, make sure to use our traditional inkwell pen on physical paper.
Yeah, that'll work great. That will definitely help.
Yeah, and make sure you have a study with a big fancy wood desk and shelves full of books.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I can totally see how being in the proper atmosphere might help you relax and get in the mood for writing. But the way that it's presented in the TV episode is very almost like this pen has magical powers, right?
Yeah.
And of course, that feeds into the whole, we hate editors. We don't like the idea of studying this because that would make it less magical. It's got to be just pure soul. And this is the thing that continues with Jake's character for a while, right? Is that the show continually emphasizes this idea that he is a good writer because of his natural genius that he just has to figure out how to get out of the way of, right?
Yeah. And again, it goes to hiding, most of the time, editors and agents do not talk about what changes or suggestions they've made to a book.
Yeah.
Right? They pretend, oh no, it's all the author, right? So we can build this aura of genius around them, which is, again, I've said it before, it's very toxic to writers, because how is a new writer supposed to live up to this idea of being an automatic, effortless genius, right? So it is worth knowing that it's for selling books. I think readers would still buy books without romanticism.
I mean, I don't know. They barely buy books now, so who can say? This also ties into another one that I've just increasingly found annoying, which is the instant mega hit overnight success. And it's not that this never happens, but it's quite rare, and it doesn't usually happen the way that it is portrayed in books, right? Usually, even if your book is very successful by book standards, you're still not usually going to be a millionaire immediately, right? You're still going to, if you get a 6-figure advance, that's a lot of money, and it's potentially life-changing money, but it's not 1% money.
Yeah.
Which is what I think people think that's what a successful book looks like. A successful book means that you are a bazillionaire now, and I can't prove this, but I also suspect that part of this is why book piracy is as common as it is that people think that authors are rich. They think, oh, well, it's okay to pirate this guy's books because, they were on the New York Times bestseller, and the only way that could happen is if they are rich. And, I mean, I know that at least some people think this because, yes, they say it on social media. They argue with the author that it's okay to pirate their books, which I'm just... How did you not die from shame doing that is the part I don't understand.
Oh my gosh.
The idea of telling an author that I'm pirating their books and it's okay, how did you not just combust, instantly from doing that? I have no idea.
Meanwhile, many best-selling authors have day jobs.
Yeah.
So, not great. Not a great look.
And of course, even the authors who do reach great success, it is almost never this and then I opened the inner floodgates and let my story out, right? There's almost always, when you dig into it, there are multiple drafts and there's editing. Even if they are discovery writers, which some of them are, they almost always have to make changes. They usually have books that they released first that didn't do very well, or books that they maybe trunked because they weren't marketable. Not necessarily worse, just not what the market wanted at that time, right?
Yeah, this reminds me of all of the TV episodes where as soon as the protagonist puts something online, it goes viral. And rarely do they write anything that I think in real life had any chance of going viral. It's well, it's really hard to make viral content because it has to stand out and it's a moving target, but everything goes viral in a story. But yeah, no, related to that, I was very annoyed with the ending of La La Land. So this is a movie about two artists, an actor and a musician in Hollywood who are trying to, get their breakout.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that really struck me about this is we're clearly going with the idea where we don't want a super happy ending because it would be too pat.
Right.
And so, these two people are having a romance with each other. So to me, it made sense that because again, most people who go to Hollywood don't make it big, right?
Yeah.
More people who go into acting end up it's so hard to get roles. It's amazingly difficult to get a role as an actor, just amazingly difficult to break in. And because, people only look at you if you already have acting credits. So how do you get your first acting credit? It's very similar to trying to break in and, get an agent, for instance.
Mm-hmm. So,
I was expecting them to end up together, but not actually break out. But instead, they both become like huge successes.
Oh,
and
good.
one of them, by putting on like a one-person play that literally almost nobody goes to, like the theater is totally empty. But apparently, like the one or the few people in the audience is a casting director who happened to love her. And it's like, really?
Uh-huh.
Casting directors are super busy and they have tons of people. They like create acting workshops and charge people money to give them acting coaching, similar to agents charging money for pitches to give them pitches in person at conferences.
Oof, I don't like that. That's not my favorite.
No, it's not my favorite, either. So, like the idea of a casting director just going to some unknown person's like one woman play and then like, I've discovered you. And then that person becoming super successful, it just, man, it feels like it undermines the experiences of most people who go to the Hollywood and never break out. And then, but see, the ending's not pat because they don't end up together as a couple. And it's just like, what?
Look, man, most of us end up dating somebody eventually. Very few of us are going to get breakout Hollywood roles.
And, man, I would like at this point more stories about somebody trying to become successful as an artist and then realizing they're never going to get, paid a living for their art and then having to deal with that, right? And decide what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And appreciate the art for the art's sake, for instance. Keep doing their day job or whatever it is.
Yeah. Somewhat related to the romanticism thing is, and I know this one is touchy because this like affects authors in real life too, is this thing that I've noticed in a number of books where the narrative acts as though the author has zero responsibility to finish a series they've started. And I know why they do that. It's because people were huge entitled dicks to George R.R. Martin and obviously went way over the line, and is probably why we're never going to get Game of Thrones over, because at this point, if I was Martin, I would never finish the series, right? But at the same time, it's weird to act as though there's no responsibility, because, you're effectively selling someone an incomplete product with an implied completion at some point. And if you go full caveat emptor and say, well, it's on them for buying it, is that really the attitude we want readers to take? That they should not buy a series until it's finished because they have no assurance at all that it will ever be finished? Because that's a problem authors have, is that people don't want to buy their series until the series is finished.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think maybe there's a little more to this than some of these portrayals would have you believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that you can't have it both ways, right? If authors are under no obligation, I mean, again, authors are a single human being. Stuff can always happen, right? So it's not like anybody's a bad person for not finishing their series. Stuff happens. At the same time, I do think, when we make certain promises to readers, we have some level of obligation to meet those promises if we can.
Yeah.
And we can't really have it both ways, right? Either we're not going to worry about doing it. And that means readers are reading a series at their own risk. And oftentimes they're just not going to want to do that until it's complete. Or we have a serious obligation and we can ask them to trust us, right? If the series isn't finished yet. And just have to choose which way we want to have it.
I just think that stories that do decide to go into this territory should acknowledge that this is a little bit of a both sides situation. Not like both sides and then it's okay to yell at George R.R. Martin. Obviously, that's wrong. But I just think that they should acknowledge that, like, you're not causing zero problems by not finishing a series you started, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a choice that, assuming it is a choice, maybe it's not, depends on what's happening, right? But if you're making that choice, that does have some consequences.
Yeah. Yep. It's one of many obligations. Again, there are other things that could be more important, but
yeah.
And certainly we shouldn't do that and then, tell readers they should start series that are not finished yet.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that you could go that direction and be like, all right, well, just don't buy a series until it's done. Oh boy, that's probably not a great message.
Yeah. I want to talk about Stranger Than Fiction.
Oh yeah?
Another one of those weird movies that depicts the writing process and maybe it's not as bad as the Deep Space Nine episode with the Jake and the seductress, but again, goes out of its way to be as anti-intellectual as possible about the writing process because of romanticism, where we've got this famous author, and because she's so brilliant, she cannot use any organized process. So she has like writer's block because she's trying to find a way to kill her character. And she can't think of the perfect way to kill her character. And she gets like a new agent who brings her like, here, try these like exercises.
Yeah.
To stimulate your creativity. But of course she has to automatically spurn them because if she used any like systematic, thought out way of trying to like help herself or foster her creativity, that would make her less of a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is also the character that types on a typewriter, not a computer.
Sure.
So the words like, and we don't see her revising anything, right? She just types it start to finish and then hands like the pages from her typewriter to the agent. All done. The other thing that happens in that one, because they talk about storytelling and writing, that this is just a very big popular idea of writing that I just think is really nonsense, which is this plot-driven versus character-driven framework, right?
You can only have a plot or a character, Chris. You can't have both. Pick one.
It's like, okay, so when people just talk about this casually, what they usually mean is either the page space is very focused on, tense problems that are exciting and moving forward quickly, or for this, that's called plot driven, or for a character driven book, they mean something that has a lot more kind of like internal narration and a lot more like relationship arcs and character arcs and just puts more of its page space into focusing on characters. Although that's not always what they mean. They could mean just about anything. But like technically what this literally is supposed to mean is whether the character takes actions that move the plot forward like every book does, or whether the plot, so like in the Stranger Than Fiction, they do a test to see if it's a plot driven or a character driven story. And so he orders this character who is in the story to just like do nothing and see if the plot comes to him. And we see like a random boulder come through the wall of his apartment because he's been doing nothing. And it's just...
Does that make it plot driven or character driven?
Yeah, it's just a nonsense distinction, right? Every story has characters that should have agency that make decisions that change the trajectory of the plot. And like that's completely different from how much time we have devoted to characters or to exciting action, for instance. Like they're the completely different things. And it's a distinction that doesn't mean anything. I don't know why people keep insisting on using it.
Especially in that context, right? Like I think what people usually mean when they say plot driven versus character driven is they're imagining that like you having to choose, okay, am I going to spend my mental real estate on an exciting plot or am I going to spend it on like deep, rich internal characters, which is also a false dichotomy. You can have both, but that at least makes some sense as opposed to whatever they were doing in Stranger Than Fiction, that like bizarre definition. I don't know what's going on there.
Right. Yeah, the idea is like, so in a plot-driven book, characters are just reactive all the time? Like there's just monsters chasing them everywhere? Because that's not how like tense books actually work.
Yeah, so in this case, are you saying that Star Wars A New Hope is plot driven because the characters are reacting, and then Star Wars Return of the Jedi is character driven because the rebels are the ones doing stuff? What?
I mean, maybe if we followed it literally, right? It just doesn't, if you try to be literal about it, and again, because stories basically, their structure all works the same way, right? We would first have to come up with like a distinction that we would say actually, where we can actually tell the difference between something that's character and plot driven, like reactive or proactivity, for instance.
Yeah.
And then, but then we would probably find that like, that's not a useful way to categorize stories.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's a little different, but it's still just increasingly bothering me, which is when you have a story where the main character is an author, and then you make me read their work, and then you tell me how good it is. Like, nah, I'm the one who decides if it's good or not. I just had to read it. You made me read. I didn't want to. You made me do it. 2 of the current Hugo nominees do this, and I had to read both of them. Mild spoilers for The Everlasting and Death of the Author. And in both, they're like, this is the most amazing thing ever written. And I'm like, this is highly summarized, very dry, and to the extent that they have plots, very weakly plotted, right? Because what else could it be? You're trying to, like, cram one novel into another novel. How could it be anything but half-baked and underdeveloped?
Yeah. I mean, it would probably work better if they didn't directly quote the inner book.
Right, or, like, just quote very isolated parts of it, right?
I mean, that's what Middle Game does, right?
And in Middle Game has its own problems, but that part of it, I think, works okay.
Because we leave the series of books vague enough that we can still like imagine they're good. Because we know very little about them, we just see small excerpts.
Yeah, and we see small excerpts, and we like, although apparently they exist now as full books.
Yeah, you don't look into it. Don't look too close.
That's wild to think about. But like, they're vague enough that the characters describe, oh hey, this situation in the real world is sort of analogous to that thing from your story. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll buy that. That might happen. But like, when I actually had to read the words that the characters are currently gushing about, it's just no. Don't do that. Cut that out.
Yeah, I mean, 10,000 Doors of January as well. Like, we have this extremely summarized story of her parents meeting and instantly falling in love. And then she's like, how dare you if you don't like my love story?
Yeah, technically, The Name of the Wind is also like that. Although it's a little less, you could forget, because but technically speaking, the entire Name of the Wind is Kavoth dictating his memoir.
Right, and he's like, every single word I say isn't intentional. Don't you dare change a single thing. It's all perfect the way it is.
It's so good, guys. It's so good.
Yeah, that's weird. Also Interview with a Vampire with the boy.
The boy.
The boy. So Louis, the main character, is narrating his like life story, and that's the actual story, but like there's technically quote unquote interviewer there who is like a boy, but the boy doesn't really exist to ask questions. He exists to be like Anne Rice's, what she wants her readers to react like. So he's always like extremely awed by everything Louis says. Is so very amazing. Impressed.
Can you imagine a vampire?
This is why so often I don't like framing devices, because it feels like an astounding number of framing devices are just some character being at awe of the story. Now, to be fair, the Princess Bride movie did it pretty well, but that's because like the kid doesn't like it at first. And we also have very charismatic actors helping.
Right. And the kid is funny and he kind of misunderstands. So there's like some commentary.
Right. It's not just like lavishing, oh, this is the best story ever. The kid is like, I don't want the kissing scene. Right. And then he just like warms up a little bit, but we're not doing the weird gushing that like the boy in Interview with the Vampire does.
Yeah. And I mean, to give the Interview with the Vampire family its due, the TV show, at least the first season of it, is amazing in this regard. Right? Mm-hmm. Where the boy is back, but now he is a man and
a
cranky.
Grumpy old man. Cranky.
Yeah. And he's like redoing the interview and he's calling bullshit on all of Louis' nonsense. And it's so great. I love it so much.
It's very cathartic after reading the book.
Like, people say that, like, one thing is in conversation with another thing, and I often have no idea what that means, but I am here to tell you that that series is in conversation with both the book and the early 90s movie.
Mm-hmm.
In that you can see the way that it is combining elements from both and commenting on them in this just, wow, like amazing way. And it makes the interviewer a part of the story, and which is the reason to have him. Otherwise, you don't need him. You could just have the story happen, right? Now, I have no idea what the third season of that show is going to be like, because we've moved beyond that framing device now, and we're doing the vampire Lestat. But whatever, the first season was beautiful. Like, I can't imagine them doing that better.
Yeah, fingers crossed for the third season. I really didn't like the second season, unfortunately.
Yeah, the second season wasn't very good. Especially because they had done this amazing abuse story, and then we're like, actually, no, the abuser Lestat is cool because he's the star of our next season.
Right. Drat. We made this an abuse story, but now this is really popular, and the abuser's the star of the third season. What do we do?
Right. Also, like, Anne Rice did that also, right, in the books. So, that I guess they felt they were stuck.
Yeah, it's just less obvious that he's abusive in the book.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Whereas it's like much more central to the show.
Mm-hmm. And last, because we're running out of time here, this one, of course, is no surprise to anyone who follows Mythcreants. I don't like it when writers in stories act like pseudo-structures are real. Like, that's a thing they do sometimes, where it's like, okay, now we're going to talk about the hero's journey and the elixir. I'm like, okay, but I'm begging you to go back and actually read the book that's from. Like, try to read it and come back and tell me if you think that's real. This is a real Emperor's New Clothes situation here, where you need to go and realize that this is all made up and none of it means anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's hard to tell sometimes what people actually believe. Like in that Voyager episode where we have a discussion between Tuvok and Paris,
mm-hmm.
where Tuvok's into like actual rigorous craft, and Paris is like, if we have a twist where characters act out a character, people like twists. And I just like want to throttle Paris, but like he's also usually one of the writer's favorite characters, at least in the beginning, not later.
Yeah.
And it's just, did they come up with this because they were actually having discussions between themselves that were very like this? Is this like, is this argument directly transplanted from the writer's room for Voyager? I mean,
if I had to guess, I would say it is. And I think it might be especially relevant for TV writers because, like, they need to come up with a new script for the same characters every episode, especially back then when they were doing this for 22 episodes a season.
Mm-hmm.
And they, need to somehow make the story that they have work with the existing characters. And I could see that being very frustrating after a while, where you're like, I need one of these characters to be like a maverick wine enjoyer, and none of them are. But that's like the only thing that will make my story work. So I guess today Chakotay likes wine. So I don't know for sure, right? I have no idea what the behind the scenes was on that episode, but I could totally see that being an actual argument that they had.
Yeah. The other thing that adds another layer to this is that when we have something like a movie like Stranger Than Fiction, but we're talking about a novelist, right? I think we've seen in many contexts that people consider novels to be like more romantic.
Yeah.
right, than other mediums in many cases. So it's like there could have been a screenwriter. I don't know that the screenwriter believes in any of these things. Also, like in Hollywood, those scripts, so many people have their hands in them. They're definitely like, a work of quite a number of people with like executives, the director, and everybody giving feedback. Right. So it's like, is this writer so romantic? It might be because that's what like a screenwriter thinks of a novelist. Right. I don't know. Maybe the script writer thinks that about their own work. It's possible. I mean, again, film writers can also be romantic. It's a little different flavor of romanticism, but they still have it.
Yeah.
But, maybe this is just their idea of what a novelist is. Or they think that this is what people want to buy as far as a movie. It can be hard to tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I think we will go ahead and call this episode to a close.
And if you've enjoyed hearing us complain about romanticism a bunch, always our favorite topic, consider supporting us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/mythcreants.
And before we go, I want to thank a couple of our existing patrons. First, there's Amon Jabber. He's an urban fantasy writer and a connoisseur of Marvel. Then there's Kathy Ferguson, who's a professor of political theory in Star Trek. We will talk to you next week.
There was a dragon with a pointy tail. He was bigger than a whale, and his breath was terrible. He scared the princess when he came around. Tried to burn the castle down, but she caught him by his tail. Then she tied him to a tree so the dragon couldn't fly. She told him he was mean, and it made the dragon cry. When he finally apologized, she offered him some tea. He accepted it graciously. Now he visits every weekend with the princess who saved herself.
This has been the Mythcreant Podcast. Opening and closing theme, The Princess Who Saved Herself, by Jonathan Colton.